On this adventure, we are hiking and fishing in the Wind River Range of Wyoming. The Wind River Range, or Winds for short, are mountains in western Wyoming. They contain many of the highest peaks in the northern Rockies. This remote wilderness area contains many streams, rivers, and lakes, fed by abundant snowfall. These waters are rumored to hold many species of fish, including some rare species of trout. These streams and lakes are very remote, and reaching them requires a long hike. We were there to catch these fish, so we planned a long loop hike through the winds. The first day, we packed our bags and hiked up to the Stow Creek Lakes.
After finding a campsite, we set up our rods and cast dry flies to cruising brook trout until the sun set behind the cliffs rising above the lakes.
Next morning, we packed up camp and headed further up the valley, fishing for more trout. To our surprise, we caught some cutthroat trout as well as the brookies we caught the night before. After we spent the morning fishing, we shouldered our packs and headed further down the trail to Mountain Sheep Lake.
In the morning, we fished our way up Teo Creek to Teo Lakes, where we started fishing again and soon found golden trout, which kept us busy for the rest of the evening. Golden trout are some of the rarest fish in North America. They are native to the Sierras of California, but were stocked into these lakes over 100 years ago. In these lakes, golden trout can grow very large, feeding on zooplankton and amphipods. Golden trout are easily visible, cruising the steep drop-offs along the shore. Although we were there to catch fish, just watching them was satisfying in its own way.
The following morning, we packed up camp and started up Wind River Peak, which just happened to lie between us and the Deep Creek Lakes. After a long, brutal climb with our heavy packs, we finally made it to the top. On top, we ate lunch and walked around, enjoying the view of the surrounding lakes and the Wind River Glacier. There are more than 100 glaciers in the winds. No mountain range in the U.S. outside of Alaska and Washington has more ice. These glaciers are responsible for carving the many cirque lakes in the winds. The melting glaciers now feed water to the lakes they once created. The ice is also responsible for carving the spectacular sharp peaks and knife-edge ridges that loom over these lakes. Once we were done enjoying the view, we heaved our backpacks onto our shoulders and headed down the other side of the mountain to Upper Deep Creek Lake, which is also home to golden trout. Fishing the stream between the lakes, we caught a nice Yellowstone cutthroat. The Yellowstone cutthroat is the only salmoniid native to the Popo-Agie watershed. Their distribution and abundance has shrunk because of the introductions of non-native salmonids. We enjoy all of our catches, but none more than the cuts. Finding a remnant of the native fauna made us as excited as catching a golden, and it gave us faith that these fish can survive and that the streams they live in might someday be restored.
The next morning, we fished the outlet to Upper Deep Creek Lake, where we caught more goldens. After catching a few fish, we packed up camp and fished our way down to Lower Deep Creek Lake, where we found a few cutthroats but didn't manage to land any. After reaching the lake, we dropped our packs and headed over the ridge with our rods to Jug and Boot Lakes, which were supposedly full of brook trout. Brook trout are invasive in the winds and have populated most of the streams and many of the high, once fishless lakes. Today, they are one of the most abundant fish species in the winds. The reason anglers value this fish is that they are easy to catch and very pretty. We spent the day skipping from boulder to boulder along the shore of this beautiful lake and had a blast catching brookies. After fishing to our heart's content, we turned back to find a campsite before dark.
The following morning, we hiked back to Jug and Boot Lakes. Once again, we fished until we were satisfied and ready to set off down the trail. Six miles later, we dropped into the Popoji Valley. After a bit more hiking, we found a beaver pond full of grayling and brook trout.
The next morning, we fished the pond some and then headed down the trail. Since we had a fairly relaxed hike back to the trailhead, we did some fishing along the way. After about 5 miles, we stumbled into the parking lot where we sat down to reflect on the hike while we waited for the shuttle. We hiked roughly 45 miles, caught 6 species of fish, spent 7 days, and gained countless memories.